Okay, so when you think classical music, what comes to mind? Probably a bunch of serious-looking dudes in wigs, right? Super boring stuff. Well, forget all that. Today, we're talking about a guy who was basically the original rock star, and he did his thing 300 years ago.
All right, listen to this for a second. Yeah, I bet you've heard that. It's in movies, TV shows, it's all over TikTok. It's everywhere. So, what if I told you the guy who wrote that wasn't some stuffy old school composer? No, he was actually a red haired priest who had this major health issue, and he led, get this, an all girl orchestra. Crazy, right? Yeah, you should be intrigued.
Okay, so let's dive in and meet the man himself, Antonio Vivaldi. He was born way back in 1678 in Venice. You know, the city with all the canals and gondolas. Super cool place. His dad was a professional violinist, so music was pretty much in his DNA. But here's the wild part. His day job, or what was supposed to be his day job, was training to become a priest. And because he had this super fiery red hair, everyone started calling him Il Prete Rosso. In Italian, that means the red priest. I mean, how cool is that for a nickname? And it's just perfect, right? It totally sums up the two different worlds he lived in, the church and the concert hall. So here's the deal. Vivaldi officially became a priest, but he almost never did any of the normal priesty duties. Why? Well, he had this health issue. He called it a tightness of the chest. Most historians are pretty sure it was asthma. And because of that, he just couldn't do things like stand for hours to lead a mass. So, you know what his bosses did? They basically told him, look, don't worry about it, just go focus on the music. And wow, that one decision, it changed music history. So, with a get-out-of-jail-free card from his priest duties, what's a guy to do? Well, Vivaldi lands this amazing job at a pretty special place in Venice. It was a home for orphan girls called the Ospedale della Pieta. And let me tell you, this was not your typical orphanage. This is where Vivaldi just went into beast mode. He wrote over 400 concertos. Let that sink in. 400. That is an insane amount of music. And so many of them were written just for the super talented girls living and studying right there at the Ospedale. I mean, just think about it from his perspective. He had this amazing, super skilled orchestra ready to play whatever he wrote whenever he wrote it. It was like his own personal music lab where he could try out all his craziest ideas. And under his direction, these girls got so good, so good, that people would travel from all over Europe just to hear them perform. They basically became international superstars, playing his music. Okay, so Vivaldi wasn't just writing good tunes. He was doing something way bigger. He was basically inventing the formula, the recipe for how to make a hit song. He created this blueprint for a concerto that was designed to make one person, the soloist, look like an absolute rock star. And his blueprint was so simple but so genius. It's a three-part structure. Fast, slow, fast. Think about it. It's the perfect setup. You start with something high energy to get everyone hooked. Then you slow it down for a really emotional, beautiful middle part where the soloist can really shine. And then you bring it all home with a huge, fast, technical finale. It's kind of like the structure of a perfect action movie, you know? And to make it even catchier, he used this technique called ritornello form. Now, the easiest way to think about this is like the chorus of a pop song, you know, like a Taylor Swift song. The whole orchestra plays this really catchy main theme, that's the chorus. Then the soloist jumps in and shreds for a bit, that's the verse. And then what comes back? That super catchy chorus again. It makes the music so easy for people to follow, and it's just really, really satisfying to hear. This whole structure, it was an absolute game changer. I mean, it was so good that even a musical giant like Johann Sebastian Bach, you've probably heard of him, he actually studied Vivaldi's music to figure out how he did it. Vivaldi pretty much invented the template for every guitar hero, every pop diva, every time you see one person on stage having their big solo moment. All right, so he's already invented the formula for a musical superstar. What do you do next? Well, Vivaldi decides he's going to make instruments tell actual stories with no lyrics, no words at all. We have a name for this now. We call it program music. And his big idea here was, well, it was like he invented the movie soundtrack hundreds of years before movies were even a thing. He would actually write little notes right into the sheet music for his players. Little instructions like, okay, for this part, I want you to sound like birds chirping, or make this sound like a huge thunderstorm. He was directing a movie with sound. And the most famous example of this, of course, is The Four Seasons. In spring, he makes the violins literally sound like birds singing back and forth to each other. It's amazing. Then he flips to summer, and you can feel the air getting hot and sticky. And then bam, this massive thunderstorm just erupts out of nowhere. The violins and cellos become the thunder and the rain. Then, for autumn, the whole mood shifts. It's like a giant party, celebrating the harvest, and you can even hear hunting horns in the background. And he finishes with winter, where he uses these sharp, plucky notes that sound exactly like teeth chattering from the cold. He was literally painting these incredibly detailed pictures, but his paintbrush was an orchestra. But, just like with so many rock stars, after this amazing period of fame and creativity, there was a crash. The last part of Vivaldi's life is actually pretty tragic, but it's also what sets up one of the greatest comeback stories in all of music history. So check this out. Near the end of his life, people's musical tastes just changed. His stuff was seen as old-fashioned. So in 1741, he died poor and completely forgotten. And then, for almost 200 years, he was just gone, vanished from history. His music was literally sitting on dusty shelves in libraries, totally ignored, until some researchers stumbled upon it in the 1900s. So, okay, why should you care about this guy who lived 300 years ago? Well, I think Vivaldi's story is so important because it proves that sometimes a real genius can be so ahead of their time that the rest of the world just isn't ready. It can take centuries for everyone else to finally catch on. His ideas were so groundbreaking, they literally had to be discovered 2 different times. So if you take away just one thing from all this, let it be this. Antonio Vivaldi gave us the playbook for how to be a solo superstar, and he showed the world that instruments alone can tell a story that's just as powerful as any book or movie. Seriously, the next time you hear an amazing guitar solo or a movie soundtrack gives you goosebumps, just know you're hearing a little piece of what the Red Priest started. And that brings us to a final question. It took us almost 2 centuries to find Vivaldi again, so it really makes you think, who's the genius of our time that we're all sleeping on? Whose music is sitting on some old hard drive or a forgotten SoundCloud page, just waiting for someone in the year, 2224, to rediscover it and say, wow,